There's something. There are. Just love that sound. Howdy. Welcome to the meeting of the 42nd session of the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M University. If you're attending the meeting virtually and need a reminder of the Zoom features used in our Senate meetings, the Zoom tip sheet can be found on our website at the top of the current agenda page. At this time, please make sure that your microphone is muted. And then for those on Zoom, Secretary Tarvin will be monitoring the Zoom raise hands function, and you'll be called upon before others in the room. He'll verbally identify you, and then you can unmute your microphone and ask your questions. In fairness to others, please limit your questions, either on Zoom or in person, to one question at a time. And then Secretary Tarvin will also be monitoring the chat to convey messages. And then we're using the registration function of Zoom as well as tracking the attendance in the room. There's a few guest administrators who have been invited to attend through Zoom or in person. We have a number of administrators in the room. Remember that seating in the room is reserved for our current faculty, staff, and students, as well as accredited members of the press. If a senator, and for everybody else, you're welcome to watch us on YouTube. If a senator wishes to offer a motion during today's meeting, please raise your hand at the appropriate time and ask to be recognized. There are going to be a number of people I've asked today to come to address the constant change and mad fun that we are finding ourselves in. Boy, we thought this was going to be a boring year, and it is so not a boring year. So I've asked a couple of people that were not on the agenda to come and talk about some of the things and just kind of to get information out. Again, information is so important. Also, I'll be reaching out to the caucus leaders to set up a meeting just to make sure that we're getting information to our respective caucus members, and that also looking for people to serve on different committees as usual. Again, I go out to the caucus members for that. So our first speaker today is Mr. Joe Padabon, who has a presentation. They're bringing that. Come up.
It's going to be a really short presentation. There we go. So howdy, my name is Joe Padabon, Vice President for Planning, Assessment, and Strategy. And I just want to briefly give you some information about an employee engagement survey that we are gearing up to launch here. Most of you are familiar with the strategic plan. One of the goals in the strategic plan is for Texas A&M to be one of the best place to live, work, and learn. And so we are looking at an employee engagement survey that would allow us to measure some aspect of this. And really what it's trying to get after is how much are our employees able to be engaged, our faculty and staff, and then how do you feel about how well we as a university are enabling you to do your work here? I realize that timing is everything when you do something like this in terms of a survey, and the timing with all the things going on in the political world might not suggest this is the best time, but we have been planning this for quite some time now. One of our goals out of this, though, is to create kind of targeted action plans to really try to figure out, okay, what will we do and hopefully do something with the results of the survey. For your awareness, the survey itself will be administered by Korn Ferry. We have partnered with them. They are collecting the information for us. It is geared towards all faculty and staff here in College Station, as well as in Galveston and the Health Science Center. And it does include our campus in Cutter. The survey will launch on February 17th and will run for 2 weeks. So you'll get a email directly to you. If you complete the survey, you will not get a reminder. If you don't complete the survey, you will get 2 reminders. We're trying to run it though in a period of 2 weeks. It's about 70 questions on a Likert scale. There are a couple open-ended questions on the survey. We anticipate about 15 minutes of your time. I will say that we did offer the opportunity for colleges to and divisions to be able to add some additional questions to the survey. About 5 colleges elected to add 3 or 4 questions to it. Primarily, those of you who are in the professional schools will see those added questions. The other colleges went with just what the base survey had. Korn Ferry, as I mentioned, is keeping all of the information. So they're not sharing any personally identifiable information with us. We do anticipate they will provide us with summarized dashboards of the information that we will then share with leadership throughout the university. And if you have any questions or comments about the survey, you're welcome to reach out to me or our office, and we're happy to engage with you. So, but we wanted to give you a heads up that it's coming, and we've shared the same information with the staff council as well, and with the leadership and faculty affairs. And we have been working with human resources and faculty affairs related to this. So, and with that, I'm done.
Any questions? All right. Oh, there's a question.
One question. Almost got off.
Dale Rice, Arts and Sciences. So I have a feeling an awful lot of people are going to be highly suspicious if they are asked to put in any kind of identifying information, even with assurances that a private outside vendor is going to hang on to that. What do you intend to do to try and reassure people and encourage them? Because I'm thinking of a lot of people I know in the current political climate are probably not even going to be honest if they do fill it out, and more likely won't fill it out for fear of retribution, which seems to be a part of the climate these days.
Yeah. So like I said, timing is everything, and the climate, the way that it is going to create some hesitation for some individuals to complete it. We recognize that that's just part of the risk that we're taking with doing the survey at this point. You know, we've tried to take some steps by having Korn Ferry keep the data and make sure that it's not actually something that's being sent to us at the individual level. So from that standpoint, we're trying to make sure that people are able to be comfortable with it. Beyond that, you know, in some respects, what I would say is you have to make a decision on what you're comfortable doing in the current environment. And we think it's the questions and such, I don't think will, other than the open-ended questions, I don't think the other questions are going to cause a whole lot of concern, but maybe the open-ended ones might create some question in terms of if I fill some of that information out, that might identify me or make me some sort of target or something. I don't believe that to be the case. But I would encourage you then to at least just do the Likert scale portion of the survey as opposed to filling out the comments if it really makes you uncomfortable.
Katrina Laporte, Arts and Sciences. Korn Ferry subject to FOIA requests?
So Korn Ferry, I don't believe is subject to a FOIA request, but I have not looked legally as to whether or not if we were FOIA'd, would we be required to provide that? I don't believe we would, but I'm not a legal expert. That's part of the way it was worded, though, was for them to be able to retain the information. And you know, I'd have to go and dig a little bit more. We can get the answer to that though and share that on our FAQ. Other comments, questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next we have General Kim Field, who is going to come and do a short presentation for us. I know there's been some questions about the summit that's happening.
Okay, great. Yeah, oh, good. It's already up. Thanks. Great. So I wanted to talk to you all about, give you a preview of what we showed the regents and give you an idea of what their response was to this, what the president's injects were in this and just take your questions. So I'm going to try to fly through it. I only picked a few of the slides. Again, happy to take other questions. I could say the same thing that, you know, Joe said the timing could be off, but I hope by the end of this, you think the opposite, that it's actually potentially an opportunity to define what you think in pretty concrete terms about the role of the university, potentially. But I'm interested in your feedback, of course. How do I do this? Okay, easy. Okay, so I skipped the context. You all got it. You know, talking to scholars about the role of higher education in defining citizenship. I can take questions, but again, I didn't think you all needed that. But really, we just started with Texas A&M, all the wonderful things that go on here, the traditions, the values, the Bush School more recently, the Corps of Cadets, all of that does lead to already pretty darn good great Aggies and some good citizens, right? All the ways that you put people into society. But really what we want is on the right here is to have this. This is a picture taken after 9/11. It's familiar to many of you. We want that in small ways, we think, in every graduate of Texas A&M every day, right? Not just one time in a moment of crisis. Now, having said that, the president has put out this initiative at his State of the University November last year, and he spoke about it again at investiture. So there's quite a bit of static in the air and some concern that, frankly, I personally feel is, you know, could be rightful. So we wanted to be really clear, and it was very clear with the Board of Regents what the president intends it to be and what he intends it not to be. Right. So it's really about America. Yes, we recognize that we are citizens of the globe, but we got to start somewhere. And I think it's a good time to look at America. A path forward of Aggie values, but not necessarily stuck in the past. Nonpartisan. I thought we'd get a little bit of comment about that. Not at all. They fully agree that the next line down is a competition of ideas, right? It's a marketplace. It's a free market. So that means ideas compete and the best ones will win, right? So they, no pushback at all other than to ask me what I meant by civil. I only meant by civil discourse in competing in that competition of ideas. It's not going to be about advocating either way for either on any specific policy. And then it is about institutions and community, not creating like these hyper empowered individuals. We do want leaders, but it's not about personal aggrandizement. It's really about the collective good. And then ultimately, could it be the watermark of the university? Is it the statement that every student makes when they cross the stage? You know, is this the way to the Aggie ring? Any number of things that we could develop. It is not a single institute like everybody's heard of UT, the Civitas at UT, and why it was put in place. It is not that. We emphasized it. The president of Humana emphasized it, and there was no pushback on that. There was a question about, so what is this, a program? Is it one thing? I said, no, it's you know, that the Civitas has 50 people that they'll touch, and we're going to touch 70,000. Right? So it went well. I didn't really get any, frankly, it just went well. In general, we think that citizenship requires engagement, it requires students intentionally engaging across values, reflection, knowledge, at least constitution-based civics, skills, civil discourse, and then engagement, civic engagement. Not everything everyone does, you know, would fall into that pillar, but civic engagement. And hopefully at the summit, we'll define that a little bit more. To get a little bit more detail, we think the bold there are really critical. But again, this is a draft. It is something to put up in front of the summit. We just wanted you to see it because obviously we can't have all the faculty there. It's only 100 people. The work, however, is going to, the task forces and the way we're going to move forward will rest really heavily in the faculty, how we do these things. So this is notional. These are illustrative ideas of things that could be done. Some low-hanging fruit, some things are very difficult. We have a couple of things. Claire's here, philosophy camp. We're going to make it about citizenship and service this year. That is happening. We have been asked by the Daniels Fund to run the ethics challenge in spring 2025 across the country. Ethics in higher education, what does that mean? There's some things we are already doing. The tougher things are, if you look in the middle column under incentivized engagement, spring, summer faculty task force on course credit award, badging, graduation, some kind of credentialing of this, right? It's going to be hard. The president was really clear when he spoke to the regents, he would like us to figure out a way to give course credit, some kind of credit, anyway, to students who do really things that would check a lot of these blocks in a really robust way. What does that mean? That criteria would have to be developed? Not easy. He said that too. It'll take a while, take a lot of great brains on it, but not impossible. He kept saying hard is not impossible. Another one I'll just highlight and then I'll almost wrap up. Faculty-led, provost-supported strategic review of learning objectives. Right, the learning objectives for the university haven't been reviewed in I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, provost office here, about 15 years. I think that's about right. So, and faculty wants to do it. And I think it's great. It's like the preamble, right, to the core curriculum, but not the core curriculum. I'll move on. And then just as a quick snapshot of what we would hope to get out of the summit. I'll just give you a second to read, to look at it. Then I'll take questions. If I have time, Angie. Okay. Okay. Questions about anything I said? I know I flew through it. There was a lot more detail and there was a lot more context up front. Oh, yes, please. Sorry.
Adam, go ahead and raise your hand.
Thank you. Adam Haney, College of Marine Sciences, Maritime Studies. One of the bullet points was review polls 206 and 207. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. You know, that is not to say that it's going to be necessarily refined, but what we want to do, not just in polls 206, 207, but across a lot of what's happening at the university, is to scan it, review it, and see what it meets with regard to citizenship and what it does not. What it does not mean that we would change the curriculum necessarily to fill those gaps, but it probably means the gaps need to be filled somehow, somewhere. So that's all it is. It's a review to see ourselves, understand ourselves first, so we know where our potential gaps would be.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Hi. Katrina Laporte, College of Arts and Sciences. I had two comments, and I hope they're not too, when you say it's not about global citizenry and it's about America and specifically America and Texas, is that not somewhat political in nature as well right now? Being that we're pulling out of global initiatives such as USAID, etc. It's just a thought. I'm not expecting an answer. The second thought I have is that we currently have a huge slew of CD courses. That is a cultural discourse course.
Yep.
I actually teach quite a popular one. It fills in about 5 minutes of opening, and a lot of the students have said it is a course that every Aggie should take because we have polemic discussions. We engage in respectful discourse about polemic issues and offer the students to exchange ideas about those polemic issues in a civil way.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hope that something like that would be included in a citizenship initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks. Both great points. I will just very briefly. It's not really America first. It's really about seeing ourselves again and understanding who we are as a country, trying to build some coherence from A&M frankly to the country. I know that's a grand and glorious vision, but I mean, I went to West Point, but I think that this place can really actually take this kind of what it means to be American to the rest of the country. I really do. That's all it means. In fact, the president, he would love to see a required course that's America in the world. He would never ask you to do that, but he said, if I had my dream, it would be America in the world. It's that important to know our place in the world, but we better understand ourselves first and have a little bit more cohesion. It's my opinion. The other point about we do want the polemic, definitely. So civil discourse underneath skills. That was I forget what the language was now, to be honest with you, I have it here. But that was one that we considered critical. Yeah, it's called cultural discourse now. I understand some faculty would like to review that for civil discourse. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. We've got somebody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I know you've got so many moving parts. When I review like engineering curriculum across the board, I used to do a lot of work for teaching ethics in the curriculum for engineering. One of the up there real top things that they wanted from the students, communication,
Yeah.
teamwork. But beyond technical skills and engineering wiggly bits, they really wanted cross-cultural competency, meaning that we could engage with people respectfully who didn't necessarily agree with us or thought differently through a problem.
Understand.
And so it's really high on, I think, our citizens
Yeah.
that we need to graduate at this cross-cultural competency.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything the contrary in all my consulting, which was like 97 individual meetings and I don't know how many groups. And I haven't heard anybody say that wasn't really
Next,
important.
Next I'll recognize Senator Beck.
Hi, Sarah Beck, Arts and Sciences. One of the questions I have or concerns was one of the pillars was talking about, I can't remember the exact language, but something about differences. And I'm concerned about that being the pillar and also what's going on with DEI legislation, both in the state and where we're kind of going nationally, especially. I just read an article from one of the higher ed publications this weekend about the exception to the DEI legislation about academic freedom in the classroom and research being removed. So I'm just curious how do we navigate that if teaching about difference becomes something that we're really discouraged to do?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I have heard this. I think that we're actually doubling down on academic freedom and things like the First Amendment, tying this back to what the essence of being an American is, this competition of ideas, civil discourse. And honestly, I'll say again, I didn't get any pushback on that from the regents or really from anyone. Now, we're not going to take the specific issues that are in the press and highly politicized and to rest on first principles. And that's kind of what I meant by I think this is not a bad time for this initiative. It's a very good time for it.
I believe Senator Bernal was next.
Yes, Julio Bernal, College of Agriculture. You mentioned that it would be important to spend some time, get the students to hammer down on the question of what it means to be American. And to me, that implies that there is some consensus out there on this question. Is there?
I would not think so. Maybe a bare minimum of things like civil discourse, that we ought to be able to disagree in a way that can actually achieve some kind of progress forward. Doesn't mean agreement, but it does mean that we have a way of understanding each other so that we can actually move forward. So perhaps my word choice was poor.
Yeah, because that's what I understood, that we should spend some time working on this.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll work on that language.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Cahill?
Tony Cahill, College of Engineering. I'm one of the guys who teaches the wiggly bits that Senator Laporte referred to. But I want to second what she was saying is that in better accredited programs and in any sort of pre-professional type field, there's going to be an ethics component. The engineering ethics very specifically has a responsibility of engineers to think about their duties towards the public. I imagine similar ethical codes exist for other pre-professional type activities we do. Certainly the lawyers and the doctors have codes like that. I would simply second Senator Laporte's statement, urging you to work with ongoing activities and thought about how public ethics are taught within majors.
Perfect.
Wiggly bits, I like that.
We will definitely examine all the wiggly bits. No, thanks very much. It gets to understand what we're already doing. Right? There's so much going on here. Thank you.
Senator Miranda?
I do in some ways like the idea of discourse and competition of ideas. But I just want caution that not all ideas are equally valid. The germ theory of disease is called a germ theory, but it is a substantive and supported theory. And alternative theories like divine retribution, things like that, really have very little, support and credence to them. So, I'm just want to caution that there are ideas and then there are ideas, and there are things that are actually true. And so we should be a little cautious about just accepting everything as it is.
No, that's great. I guess the point is you don't shut anybody down, but you only shut them down after there's no facts and they're not well sourced. Right. So thank you very much.
Senator Falvo.
Thank you. And thank you for coming to speak with us today. I have a question about sort of the impetus for this. I'm a historian, and a lot of what we do is celebrate the role of America in the world. And I'm really supportive of the idea that a global history class might be a mandated core, as it is in a lot of other.
Didn't say that.
I know, I got a little carried away. But that is what a lot of history classes do. And so as someone who's very committed to placing America in a global context and celebrating America in their global history and their history in the world, where is the idea coming from that we don't do that already? It's a key part of what I teach, and I think it's a key part of what a lot of my colleagues teach. And is there a particular place, or where is the pushback coming that we don't do that already?
Again, there was no sense that it wasn't being done, but is it being done universally? So yeah, maybe. But again, we'd probably have to do a good scan and see, where it is being done, to understand whether or not that it would, if it was absolutely, if every student got yeah, I probably shouldn't have brought that up. I'm learning. I'm new here. Okay. But the point is that it was in addressing the idea that we are not starting with citizenship of the world. We just can't. We're already boiling the ocean. We have to start closer to home, or I think we would all agree we need it. So that could be another thing that we take on. But there was nobody said we're not doing it at A&M. No one's ever said that.
I think we have time for one more question. Senator Bright.
Hi, Leonard Bright from the Bush School of Government. So I just have one comment here. I think the idea, sounds great. Citizenship, ethics and things like that. My concern is that I don't see how you teach that without teaching diversity and inclusion. This is what America is. America is diverse. It is a big place. So in this environment, I'll be curious to understand, is this just a play on words you're doing, or are you really going to teach this to our students in the way that they need to be taught, to understand, yes, their place as citizens, but also their relationship to a diverse America. I mean, we're not just talking about the whole world, I understand that, but America is diverse. So how do you avoid that conversation in a topic like this?
Yeah, I don't think that it would be avoided, but I have to say I'm not an educator. You all own the expertise in what actually conveys this idea of free competition of ideas. But all I can say is we are committed to the initiative. Is absolutely committed to that, with the understanding, why would you need it? Because it is a diverse country. And I don't think there would be any pushback, even if you can't use DEI as, as the language. I think the program really does address it fairly well at its foundational fundamental principles. In fact, I think it's a good thing to actually promote the objectives that I think a lot of people feel are under attack. Okay. Thanks a lot, Angie. Thank you all. And I'm available to anybody who wants to talk about this more one-on-one at any time. Thanks. Okay.
So, as you know, there's lots of things, lots of moving parts, lots of things that are changing. And I don't know, I was going to ask if the provost would like to come forward and just talk a little bit. We can absolutely revisit these things in committee of the whole, but I think you might want to share just some of the things that you're dealing with and working on, because it's important to know that when all these changes are happening, they're not ignoring this. I can tell you they're thinking about this. The more information that we can share, if we learn things through our professional organizations, through different organizations that we're members of that talk about the impacts of all the changes at the federal level that have intended and unintended consequences. That's information that's beneficial for our administration to know, because they have their areas of expertise, and by all of us gathering together, we can get more information to help everyone. So if you have things like that, anybody, faculty, staff, anybody who's listening, you feel free to send that to the Senate email, senate@tamu.edu, or send it up to the administration. The more information, the better, just so we can see and understand impacts. So I'm gonna ask the provost if he wants to come up and share some things, and again, we can revisit committee of the whole.
Yeah, hi, thank you very much. Yeah, there's a lot swirling around. And one constant is that it's continuing to change. So the most recent activity was late Friday afternoon, early evening, a notice from NIH to reduce their indirect cost rate from our 52.5, was our normal negotiated rate, down to 15. And what implications that would have to ongoing projects, future projects. There was already the pause put on study sections and reviews of proposals and things. And so there's new grants and things that are also affected, but the directive was really about the IDC rate. That is layered on top of the stop work orders and the executive order about DEI, and some of the anxiety about ICE activity and immigration policies and things like that. And so all of this is, like I said, swirling around, and it all is continuing to change. We are working quite feverishly, the collective to keep up with it, to understand it, to determine what the impact of it is. In some cases, like the NIH change, what the dollar value of that is, and how we might mitigate those changes. We were working last week on some students that were in AID projects that were losing their funding and were going to be leaving the country because of that, and frantically trying to get some funding together to help them meet that need and to stay. And so there's a lot of individual needs like that are popping up, but the big picture is really what we are trying to address. And the first challenge is understanding what the problem is, the magnitude of the problem, the detail of the problem, what kinds of individuals and programs and activities, et cetera, are being affected. And once we kind of get a sense of that, then we can begin to plan and to act. And that's, in terms of planning it, is how do we minimize the damage to individual people losing jobs, or the students losing their funding in their education and things like that. And then how do we maybe position funding to help bridge some of those situations, or find other funding for those activities, like for those students I mentioned last week. And then the other piece of that you can do once you understand the problem and have an idea of what the implications are, dollar-wise, or even impact on NIH, what kind of research is going to stop. We can then begin to communicate and advocate and try to help policymakers understand both what's being lost by some of these actions, or what impact they're having on their constituents, on the nation, and on the state, and things like that. And so I've got a variety of people here that can help answer questions about some of those specific areas if there's questions that come up. But I think one of the things that Michael Hardy, the Director of Federal Relations, who's back there, who can come up and speak as well, is the one thing about this is things are changing, the whole landscape's changing. And I think to expect that we can, fight back and push back and keep it all the same is probably being unrealistic. It's a matter of how do we understand the change, try to shape the change, try to live within the change, and try to keep doing the things that need to be done in the midst of that change. It's unsettling for us, and us meaning all of us. We're working quite hard to understand the impact of that. SRS is really working overtime all weekend long, trying to understand, trying to put some numbers to this NIH change. And there's a variety of focus teams that are trying to get an initial handle on this, and ones at the system level that you can imagine involves the Vice Chancellor for Research, the finance team there. It also includes myself and Jack and Susan Balabine and some of the university leadership, and that is because we're the biggest piece of the research infrastructure for the system. So there's one at the system, and then we have also one at the university that is trying to, again, initially trying to get our head around what's the dollar and people and programmatic impact of I'm speaking out of the NIH problem, but there's really the bigger one. And then those are really focused on the NIH problem, but then there's the bigger problem of just all of this change happening all at once, right? And what's the impact? How do we manage that? How do we communicate it? How do we keep everybody informed about what's going on while we develop the strategies to help mitigate that? The speaker is CPI. I chairs on those. We were on some texting strings over the weekend, trying to keep everybody informed. But we're trying to, we were just speaking this morning on, this was the second meeting that we've had of the university one, about broadening that so that there's more people involved, not just in understanding what's going on, but in helping to develop, once we have those numbers and understand the magnitude of the problem, helping more people be involved in developing whatever those mitigation strategies are. So don't have all the answers, don't even have many answers yet in all this, but Michael, do you want to say a couple things before, because there will be the committee of the whole at the end, that there can be some other questions, but you might want to make some remarks about things. Maybe there have been some late developments in DC.
Good afternoon. For those that don't know me, I'm Michael Hardy. I'm the Director of Federal Relations here at A&M. I think I'll start with the same point that the provost just made. We don't have a lot of answers right now. I can assure you it is not for lack of effort, but there just have not been a lot of answers to things we're trying to understand right now. Many of you know the news from today, not just the NIH point, but there was a lawsuit filed by 22 states attorneys general to challenge the NIH decision that came out on Friday. I would imagine a decision would be coming pretty soon. Of course, don't know how that's going to play out, but that's sort of the latest development that has happened today. Again, I'm happy to answer questions at the end. I'll be here as long as y'all need me to, but I want to emphasize that there's so many components to this. There is the agency side of this. There is the Capitol Hill side of this. There is this how it relates to the state legislature. There are so many parts of this we're trying to get our hands around, and that, you know, as this evolves over the coming days, weeks, months, probably 4 years, we're going to constantly be in this state of having these things come down. Don't know what it's going to look like, but I assure you we are having conversations. I am having, if not hourly, conversations with our colleagues on Capitol Hill, with members of Congress and their staff about what this means. We're still trying to kind of understand what it all means to us from the financial point, the personnel standpoint. So as you have information that you can share, please make sure that we do get it. I am trying to share that. If you send an email, I will promise you I will get back to you. It might take a day or two, but I assure you I will respond. And again, we just want to be a resource for you. We understand there's a lot of angst right now, understandably so. And we want to be your voice, at least from my side of this in Washington. I go there now on a weekly basis. I am not going this week, but I was there last week, the week before. I'll be there next week. And we're going to start engaging more and more on this topic on the Hill. I can't guarantee what the outcome is going to be. Look, as I've told folks throughout the day, this is my 5th or 6th meeting on this today. Things are going to look different. We have to just accept that fact. It is going to be different. There is no sort of, if we fight all this back in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is, it'll suddenly all be undone. It's not gonna happen. Things are going to look different and we have to understand that. So those are just general brief updates. We are publishing on the government relations website. There's a little link that says federal government transition. As things come out, we are updating that as soon as possible. I know SRS has their website. I know VPR does. I know the provost does. So we are trying to be a resource of information as well. But please don't ever hesitate to reach out. I've spoken to many of you in different settings. I see familiar faces here from different groups. So good to be with you again. But really happy to answer any questions at whatever time's appropriate. But yeah, that's what I can share so far. So.
Again, we'll have, they've all been available to ask questions in committee of the whole. I know there were so many questions. It is important more than ever that we remember that we are the Aggie family and that we need to work with each other, to support each other, to inform each other about all the things that are going on across the university, across the state, across the nation, and across the world. We have to stand up for each other. And it's our responsibility as senators to represent our faculty, to make sure that we're reaching out to our faculty to get information from them. The flow of information is critical right now. So again, if you hear things, have questions, see things again from your professional societies or other organizations, please share that. Again, you can do it through the Senate. You can do it directly through Mr. Hardy's office, but that information is very valuable right now. And we are people who are sources of information. We should not be afraid of that. So let's share where we can. So let's go next to our agenda and go to the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, first the minutes. We'll move on to approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the January 13th, 2025 meeting minutes found in attachment A? All right, hearing none, then I declare the minutes approved as distributed. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or concerns on the February 10th consent agenda items?
Yes, this is Wendy Greenwood from the College of Nursing. We respectfully request the following courses to be removed from the consent agenda. Nursing 662 Acute Care Practitioner Practicum 1, Nursing 663 Acute Care Practitioner Practicum 2, Nursing 665 Acute Care Practitioner Practicum 3, and Nursing 680 Diagnostic Procedures for Acute and Critical Settings.
The last number was 680?
680.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. So as you recall, when we pull something off the consent agenda, then it is not, that's not debatable. It's pulled off a consent agenda. Are there any other items of concern from the consent agenda? All right. Hearing none, then I'll declare the February 10th consent agenda approved as amended. All right. So unfinished business, and Senator Greenwood, if you would care to suggest some way of dealing with those?
Yes, the 4 courses that I mentioned, we would just like them to roll back to the graduate committee to be considered and resubmitted with our certificate program when we move it forward.
Okay, so this is being requested to roll back to the GIC.
The GC.
Okay, GC, sorry. That was a motion, I'm assuming. So do I have a second for that motion? All right, any discussion on that? All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Well, all right, you may put your hands down. Our folks online are sharp on the trigger today. That's great. Any opposed, please raise your hand. And any abstention? Actually, there's no abstention on that one. All right, the motion passes. Those will be returned. Thank you. All right, we now move on to committee reports. Does anybody have any questions or questions or concerns with the core curriculum committee annual report and the other report information items on the core curriculum report in attachment C? All right, hearing none, I declare the core curriculum committee report approved as submitted. All right, so the next thing is on the informational item, and that was just the code of conduct. We're still gathering feedback and concerns, things, issues, or questions that our senators have with respect to the proposed code of conduct, that draft version. We received feedback from several people. If you have feedback that you would like to present, please email that to the Senate email address. So I can, again, senate@tmu.edu, or if you forget, just let me know. And then we'll forward that to the committee to get that out there. Talk to your constituents, share that with them. Remember that many of you are members of professional societies that have codes of conduct. And so you might look at those codes of conduct as kind of a reference of kind of that thing. This is not unusual. I mean, I think virtually every professional society has those. So I assume that our faculty, most of them will be ascribing to one of those. So at any rate, if you would please do that and provide feedback on those, that would be very helpful as that committee gathers information. And Senator Rice, do you have anything you want to say on that particular topic? He's going to stand up just to say no because I'm on the spot. Sorry.
Just that I think that we have received some very good feedback, and both from people who are very happy with it as written and from others who are voicing concerns that we're reviewing, and we'll get back to people with the with responses. And I expect to see some changes move forward.
Great. No, that's very helpful. And that's the important part, is to be able to provide context as well, because as everybody knows, when you write something, you know what you intended to convey. And so if someone else is reading it, they might not get the same thing out of it. So it's very helpful if you have questions or concerns to be able to share that with the committee in case they need to edit something or to make sure that they're putting forward the idea that they intended. Okay. All right. So I'm going to invite Speaker-elect Klein to take us into committee of the whole.
So before we open it up to everyone, I believe Senator Bright wishes to have one of his colleagues be able to say something to us.
Yes, I asked that Dr. Ren Mew from the Bush School be recognized to give her a statement on Greg Abbott's heartening of the state.
Thank you. Ren, please unmute your mic and go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm Ren Mu, a professor in the Department of International Affairs from the Bush School. I wanted to share with you my experience with the System Research Security Office. On November 26, days after GA 48 was issued, 3 research collaborations that I had with Chinese colleagues were disapproved. And they cited a single reason: the CCP and the state-sponsored affiliations. My projects are social science research projects using Chinese data sets to study questions like how internet connectivity affects the urbanization process and the non-employment outcome of minimum wage policies in China. And these studies have no connection to sensitive technologies or critical infrastructure. So this experience makes me deeply concerned that GA 48 could be interpreted too broadly, potentially halting legitimate research collaborations with China. So along with 3 colleagues in 3 different schools, I helped draft a detailed memo where we recommend that the university clarify in his guidelines to distinguish between sensitive and non-sensitive research collaborations. So let me just quickly highlight 3 key points from the memo. First, regarding the scope of GA48. While the order aims to protect critical infrastructure and prevent security risks, it doesn't prohibit academic collaborations, of course, unless they involve sensitive technologies or classified areas. Therefore, the university's implementation of this order should avoid overly broad interpretations that could restrict legitimate research collaborations unrelated to security concerns. The second point is there's also, we believe, a clear distinction between sensitive institutions and non-sensitive institutions. While some Chinese universities are on the US Department of Commerce entity list due to security concerns, many other universities, all the rest of the universities are institutions that serve academic purposes, just like universities like Texas A&M. Well, these universities are state-funded. Treating all Chinese university affiliations as problematic, CCP, by the way, CCP stands for Chinese Communist Party. Treating all the Chinese university affiliations as problematic CCP connections would be overkill. It would be like considering all of us faculty in US state university as government agents. The third point is maintaining non-sensitive collaborations is crucial for academic freedom and also for the US interests. Our research informs US public and policy makings about China. And we all agree that that is an increasingly significant global actor. And our work has gained recognition from agencies like the US State Department and the World Bank, as well as major media outlets. And many of our collaborators are graduates from US institutions, including Texas A&M. So we recommend that the university develop clear guidelines that allow non-sensitive research collaborations with institutions not on the entity list. And this approach, we believe, would ensure the compliance with GA48 order, at the same time preserving valuable academic partnerships. So thank you all for your attention to this important matter.
Thank you. Would the provost have anything to say on updates on this particular issue?
I'd be happy to follow up from the VPR's office. There is two pieces to this. One is the university, one is RSO. The university does have an appeal process in place, and there are discussions ongoing with the respect of what was presented between the university and the RSO on that element of it. As far for clear guidelines, yes, the guidelines are we can improve upon them, but the spirit is we want to continue international collaborations. We need within countries of concerns. There are elements that we take into account, RSO takes into account, and they're looking at it differently from us, RSO being system. And we work back and forth trying to maximize the research we can do through mitigations. I'll stop at that point.
Provost Sams.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add a little bit to the specific GA48 update, we don't have the final process for the implementation of that. Last month, we were getting ready to launch a collection mechanism through Qualtrics to collect comments and questions and things. We have received about 220 pieces of feedback on that, and have sent the first wave over to OGC. The second wave is getting ready to go. We have shared them with the speaker so that the Senate has a record of the feedback that we got, but that's the status of that. We don't have a final implementation process for GA 48 yet, but it's being developed, and we'll let you know as soon as it is ready. And if there's more comments, please send them in.
Senator Kolozinski has his hand raised.
I'd like to ask the administrators, the last two that spoke, both Jack and Provost Sams, why exactly are we scrutinizing research collaborations on fundamental research? Because fundamental research is exempt from export controls. So there's no federal need to scrutinize it. There's no federal need to deny collaboration with the Chinese co-author if you're working on public data like I do. I had a collaboration denied, and then I had to ask about it to find out that I could appeal it. So that's another problem. That when the denial first came in, they didn't tell me I could appeal it. So I just wrote back saying, I don't understand. I'm using public data or commercially available data. There's no national security implications to this. How could you possibly justify the denial? And then they said, well, the person that you're collaborating with is in an institution of concern, but you can appeal it. Well, it would have been nice to know I could appeal it when I got the first email, right? So I am appealing it, and I'm still waiting the appeal. But I mean, I don't understand why you're even doing this, because there's nothing in that executive order that says you shouldn't be allowed to work on research that involves only public data with Chinese co-authors. I don't see where you're getting that from. So
G48 isn't the only driver on this. Federal agencies are
okay, but we're talking about fundamental research.
But federal agencies with their funding are putting in more and more requirements and are putting in play requirements for verifications. And
so what I've asked this many times, and I've never been able to give a straight answer. What specific regulation from the federal agency is requiring this? Because I've seen nothing. And I can show you the regulation that says fundamental research is exempt from all export controls. So can you please tell me which regulation is requiring this?
I can't tell you that off the top of my head.
And no one can, that's the problem.
No, fair enough. What I suggest is we add this to an agenda item, and we ask system, and we'll ask export control to come in, and we'll have a conversation on it.
All right, and so maybe we can get it like not making those of us who do fundamental research jump through all these extra hoops, I hope.
My priority is to maximize international engagement where we can. So
okay, that's good.
Let's keep the dialogue going. I'm happy to, from an appeal process, we'll make that clear. That was put in place by RSO because that's essential. And we can walk through what that process is. We can walk through the review process that we do to keep it as transparent as possible. That's essential.
So yeah, it would be very helpful to put some information about the appeal process online. I don't think it is there. And
I will look into that. That's easy.
And it would be good to make it clear to all researchers. Should be like a standard thing when a collaboration is denied. Let us know what that there is an appeals process. Because again, if I hadn't asked, I wouldn't have been told.
No, very good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Senator Miranda has his hand raised.
Thank you. The other thing that concerns me in all of this is the time sensitivity. It feels like this process takes inordinately long. Not only is it opaque, but it takes inordinately long. And that means that research gets delayed to some point where the data may no longer be useful. I just like Senator Kolozinski, I don't see how this, even gets into being reviewed. And one of the things that I would just urge is that we have agencies like FIRE, for example, the Foundation for Individual Rights, that are interested in these issues and have expressed an interest in faculty contacting them if they face such issues. So maybe we need, kind of an outside eye on these things.
Thank you, Senator Miranda. Anything else for Committee of the Whole? Any questions? There are a lot of people who might be able to answer some of the concerns on a number of areas. Oh, so Senator Kolozinski has his hand raised again.
Yeah, so this is something I'd ask of the executive committee. I would ask you all to perhaps prepare some sort of a resolution or statement from the Senate regarding this issue. Some sort of resolution urging the system to not restrict fundamental research or fundamental research collaborations with scholars in countries of concern, so long as that research is either fundamental or doesn't use any sensitive data. That I would just urge the executive committee to do something like that, put that on the agenda for next meeting or something of that nature. Because we really do need to make a statement about this. I mean, what's happening now is absurd.
Thank you, Adam. The executive committee will take that up. Senator Bright.
Yes, on another topic. So there was some clarification that came across by email from the university that addressed the expectations of us if we were faced with law enforcement coming into our classes. And again, this is a topic that many universities are talking about all across Texas. Some are giving different guidance than what we have received, but nonetheless, I think it would be important if there was an opportunity for us to ask some questions. For example, someone had asked me or posed this question, or while we're not to obstruct law enforcement is certainly in any way, are we under some responsibility of identifying our students if they came and asked us a question? My understanding is FERPA says that student names is protected. So that memo letter did not address those kinds of questions. So it'll be great if there was someone available to ask. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Peter, would you like to come up and try to address some questions?
There we go. Thank you.
Why don't you just come all the way up? Okay.
I'll start off with the words of my friend Joe Pettibon said. I'm not a lawyer, but I will take my best shot at everything.
But introduce yourself first.
Yeah. So howdy, I'm Peter Lang. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Texas A&M University. So I sent the message out. UPD reports to me. And so I'll take a couple shots at your question related to, and some of the ones that I've seen come up. So we worded the memo in such a way that if there was a question about a law enforcement officer that came to you with a warrant or a subpoena, there can be different kinds of warrants, that the direction was to give UPD a call so they could help straighten that out. Because there are civil warrants, there's judicial warrants, there's different things that happen. Honestly, the chance of a law enforcement officer coming to an individual faculty member or even an individual staff member that's outside of their normal channels, because we get warrants and subpoenas, they happen for information and they go through the proper channels. So just have to have somebody randomly show up and stick a warrant in somebody's face is highly, highly unlikely. When I was answering some of the questions last week after I sent the message out, I was about to say I'm not aware of any law enforcement activity related to immigration on a college campus in the United States of America. And then I Googled and I found one in the Pacific Northwest, and it was and I think it's probably a good example. It was a community college, and it was an immigration issue that happened in a parking lot for a very specific individual that was on an expired visa. My current interpretation of what's happening around the country is that there are known subjects that are on lists that have worked through the process of warrants and things like that that happen. And so some sort of random question for information is highly unlikely, but if it did happen, then somebody doesn't have a warrant and you're talking about any sort of FERPA or HIPAA information, then there would have to be a warrant and they would have to go through the proper channels like they do anytime that they need some sort of information like that. And typically they work through university police in order to be able to get that information.
Senator Hayden, is your question?
Senator Hayden, is your question for me?
Yes, and that's Harden.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was related. So just to be clear, because I've heard some concerns from faculty members about this, and although there may not be record in previous terms or at other universities, we know we are in unprecedented times, and that there are records of ICE agents showing up at schools in K through 12. And so, these things may be possible. So what you're saying is if someone shows up, we are to contact UPD and not engage. I mean, can you provide clarity? Because even concerning a warrant, we wouldn't know necessarily what would be official versus not official, what if someone actually had an actual warrant versus didn't, or just a piece of paper. So can you clarify, please?
Yep. And I think that's exactly the rationale behind why we said call UPD, to let them sort that information out for you.
Okay.
Senator Marini?
Francesca Marini, College of Performance, Visualization and Fine Arts. I have one question for you and then one question general, and I'm thankful many of our administrators are here. So if this happens, somebody comes to the classroom, we just say wait and call UPD? And
Yep, you can say wait. I have a campus law enforcement is going to come and make sure everything's okay. And some of the answers that I emailed back last week too, I also pointed out that sort of the likelihood of a law enforcement intervention effort in that setting is probably not likely either. It would be, that's just not a great safe place to do something like that in a room full of people. It's not typical of where you would see a warrant served or anything like that, or any sort of apprehension. So that's kind of back to the, in the unlikely event of this happening, then UPD would be a great resource.
thank you so much. My question is general. I know the university has been working a lot on serving the students in terms of supporting mental health, and we have many, many other services. Given how much is going on, I was curious to know, like, there are new initiatives or even hiring more counselors for therapy and hiring more advisors, more student services staff. I know we have a lot going on, so I was wondering if we're trying to offer more services to students. Thank you.
Looking at Justin, maybe. Provost, I don't.
We'll catch that up later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator Babs?
Hi, I'm Senator Babs from the College of Arts and Sciences. One of my colleagues actually did have a question related to your email, which is that she didn't understand really based upon the email what the definition of a publicly accessible space was. And I realize it's probably unlikely that it'll come up. And I think the answer might be to just ask UPD if they're trying to enter a space and there's some question of whether that's a publicly accessible space or not.
Yeah.
But
So I would, I kind of define it like this. It's like during the day where a regular person can walk around on campus. So certainly outside, anywhere in the public spaces, but let's say today, there's nothing going on at Reed Arena and the doors are locked, that wouldn't necessarily be a publicly accessible place.
I mean, by that
so that-
definition, then classrooms when we're teaching usually aren't publicly accessible spaces. If someone walked in and was a random person not related to the class, I would be like, why are you here? Did you come to learn a lot of R? Why?
And so I would agree with that. And I with the asterisk of during class change,
Yeah.
it might be publicly accessible, but during class, it wouldn't.
Okay.
And I would just like to remind all of our faculty, first of all, the number for UPD is 845-2345.
It's on your ID.
Yes. And so have that number at hand. I can't personally, also, I can't imagine that this would be an issue, but what I'm more concerned about is people who are not actually legit people, because those are the stories that we're hearing now. So if you have a random person show up in your classroom, call UPD. No matter what, whether we're in this crazy times or not, you should do that anyway.
Senator Bernal.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I have a question since I mean, obviously it's probably true that something like this is very unlikely, but it still is possible. Not all of us read emails, including yours. Very few of us are at this meeting and so aren't privy to the information you've been sharing. There's some confusion about terminology, et cetera, et cetera. Why can't the university simply put out a big sign outside classrooms to this effect? And the sign directed at possible ICE folks, what they can and can't do.
I think you can just take that under advisement.
Noted.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Miranda.
Miranda Medicine.
I was expecting an answer, actually.
Well,
I could take
so
that.
Senator Bernal, I don't think there necessarily is an answer. I mean, because,
Is it possible to put out signs? Maybe it isn't. I don't know.
well, I think that's something that they're taking under advisement to look at to see if that's an option.
I mean, if you say so, but I haven't heard
remember-
anything different.
I just want to clarify that, remember, committee of the whole is to bring up issues to everybody's awareness. And we do ask for answers, but we can't require and expect answers. I want to be fair to the people who come up and talk. And that's not a criticism of you, Senator Bernal. I just want to set expectations. I personally would be concerned that that might stress out some of my students more than actually allay their concerns. Personally, if I had
I think they're stressed out. Many students are stressed out already. Maybe that would help them be more at ease.
No, and I think I absolutely think that is something we should be discussing, is to see if there are things that would help make it better instead of worse, for sure.
Still, I would appreciate if there is no answer, just to say I don't have an answer. That would be excellent. Sorry.
I don't have an answer.
Thank you.
Senator Miranda.
Miranda from Medicine. Just a follow-up question. What is our responsibility to ensure that the person purporting to be a police officer or agent actually has a warrant to be there? And what happens if the person becomes highly aggressive and does something violent?
Well, it's, again, we're going to some hypotheticals that are really kind of out there on the edge, but again.
No, not really on the edge. I apologize, but not on the edge.
I noted. Call UPD. Response time is in minutes, and we'll get there as absolutely as soon as possible, and they will sort that out. I would not encourage you to do anything that would put yourself in harm's way.
Thank you.
College of Architecture. the whole time everybody's been talking about this, maybe everybody else's Google is different than mine. I've been sitting back there Googling ICE in schools. There's no nationwide, no reported instance that I can find on my phone about ICE in schools anywhere. We're talking about a boogeyman that doesn't exist.
And that's currently our thinking. This is a very low probability of something that we'll see on a college campus.
Senator Hardin.
Yes, and just as I stated before, we are in unprecedented times. And so I think being aware and also proactive is still very important. Just a recommendation, seeing how you're at least listening to recommendations, is maybe clarity, maybe putting something out that offers clarity concerning this idea of public space, because that letter doesn't say anything about classrooms. And so it would be a bit confusing for me, or if I wasn't in this call to understand what was happening. So I don't know if there's going to be any further information going out to the university, but maybe just a little bit more clarity for university members. What is public access? What is private, et cetera?
We have some FAQs on the ops site that was linked to, and so maybe that would be a good spot to add that clarity. So we'll give some examples maybe of, like I did with something about, outside by the fountain versus a public meeting versus a closed locked building or something like that. I can do that.
Sure.
And Senator Kolinsky.
Yeah, so my inclination would be if a federal agent of any sort came to my classroom and wanted to go inside, and so long as he showed me his badge and I was convinced he was an actual federal agent, I would let him or her in. Is there any reason not to? I mean, our classrooms in our building are usually publicly accessible. Anyone can walk into them. I mean, is there any reason not to let a federal agent into a classroom? My inclination is not to interfere with federal law enforcement. Why would I want to do anything other than let the federal agent into my classroom? I don't get it.
I think in that scenario, he would be, or she would be looking for somebody specifically, and they should have a warrant to be able to see that. And back to, from their perspective, interrupting your class to do something like that in a public setting really doesn't make sense from a safety and security perspective. So I think you're well within, back to the original guidance. If it happens, I would call UPD and let them help sort that out, and just
Or what if I don't want to bother and say, okay, sure, go to my classroom. Am I under any sort of jeopardy if I do that?
Nope, you're not.
No?
Unless, I
Okay.
would say though, I would not want to be responsible for verifying that a person is in fact a federal agent. There's a lot of fun things you can buy on the internet. So
That's true.
I would suggest to protect yourself
Mhm.
from an error in judgment because somebody bought something really cool, that you contact UPD. Doesn't mean you're obstructing. It means you are contacting UPD to make
Okay,
sure
so they can verify. That makes sense.
that you're verifying that.
Okay.
Senator Bright.
So as sort of build on that, is there any issue, because you said this several times, that the university sends out clear guidance that if a law enforcement officer, ISIS, or anyone in that realm comes to your classroom, comes to your office, that contact in PDT, not PDT, but whatever, UPD and to seek guidance? I mean, is there anything wrong with you just saying it very clearly? I mean, irrespective of how rare this is, and there's none right now. Certainly, we don't want to wait until things happen, and then we're trying to decide how to do things. So is there an issue with you doing that?
No, that was the message last week. Said call UPD.
No, it said that on it said, if you're asking for protected information, but and then you kind of was vague about the classroom situation. So I would think, for the faculty, to belay concerns, just send that clear message out, to us, and then I think, many of these issues will be relayed. I don't think UPD would have a problem coming to our classroom anytime we have an issue.
I'll commit to reach out to the administration to talk about some clarifying language that we might do. And also a follow-up email, simply because people may not have seen the email last time. And so additional messaging in light of all the things that are happening nationally might be a good idea. So I'll commit to reaching out for that.
And I think I can clean it up on the FAQ as well.
Thank you, Peter. Is there anything else for Committee of the Whole? I've got a whole litany of things. This is Senator Baps from the College of Arts and Sciences. I've been, it has been impressed on me by colleagues that sorting out the GA48 thing is of immense and immediate need, particularly not just to the research collaboration question, but also to the details of how personal travel to those countries that are on that list will be handled. Another item that I'd like to discuss is, well, everything that's been going on, but in general that there's one is that I hope that the administration is making good and detailed plans for the worst case scenarios. Because if many of these things come to pass in combination, we will need some good and detailed plans for worst case scenarios. Thirdly, I would like to stress that much of this has been having an impact on people who aren't here right now, and that's the graduate students. They are not immune. When I was a graduate student, I didn't pay a lick of attention to the whole fight over the ACA when it was in Congress. But man, the graduate students these days are a bit different and a lot more tuned into what's happening at the federal government level. A lot of them are very, very worried either for what's going to go on with their current salary. And that's not just people on research assistantships. I've talked to students who are on teaching assistantships and are worried that they're going to be kicked off of their teaching assistantships to make room for students who are currently on RAs and are going to get kicked off of the RAs, and then they'll be given their TAs and then they'll be out. Because usually, it's the best students that get the RAs and then the not so great students that get the TAs. And there are definitely students that are worried about that. I'm just saying, I'm not saying these are real worries. I'm just saying that these are worries and concerns that they have. And my general sense is that whatever sort of communications we're giving them about how to, about how their good situation will be handled, or about how things are going to be in the future for them, they're not really hearing much reassuring that is making them be productive and being able to be good students and good TAs and good research assistants. So I really stress that we should put more focus on them. And us faculty, we're good at living through chaos. They're not so used to it yet. So thank you. Thank you, Senator Babst. I'm sure your points about student mental health, both graduate and undergraduate, be well taken. Senator McGill.
Clint McGill Coles. This is since we have these people here with all the information. I know that like some of the Ivy League schools have like a 200%, whatever you call it. And I know that Ag had, or USDA had like 20 and 52 for whatever. Is this a universal thing they're trying to do all the way across?
Does somebody wish to answer his question about indirect cost or IDC? Jack, do you want to talk?
Well, I can't speak for individual federal agencies or the actions taking place. I think the whole premise is on driving down government costs, and the discussion is F&A rates are viewed by some in the administration as being too high, and they're reducing them. Right now, we have one agency, NIH, that is taking this approach. There's concerns that others are, but how it plays out, I don't know.
Yeah, I would just actually echo Jack's comments that, I mean, we haven't heard anything directly that, NSF or DOE or other agencies will, but I mean, honestly, if we can use common sense, I mean, it's probably won't just be one agency. We don't know that yet, hopefully not, but that's, I think, where it's at right now, so.
Just another thing, I'm one of the people who had a USAID student. Fortunately, she's due to graduate this semester. It took about a day for our international students things to get her off of that, whatever her visa thing was, to now she's okay. So, and we hope we'll have some money.
Thank you, Clint. Anyone else? Senator Mesmer.
Yeah, Sarah Meismer, Performance Visualization and Fine Arts. And this is a question probably for my friends in Faculty Affairs. I'm wondering what we're going to do to advise our faculty who have had their research either completely stopped, truncated, paused, and what that does for things like promotion and tenure, and then long-ranging plans to continue to study in the discipline that they're studying. And I think that could be DEI, that could be NIH funding, that could be, any of the governor's orders. So I'm wondering, in the past, we've had, during COVID, we were able to say, please don't count the student evaluations. But what are we going to do in the meantime to advise faculty for some of these really impactful things that are happening?
Yes, and as Dr. Johnson comes forward, I just want to let you know that I did bring that to the president and the provost attention at the cabinet meeting on Tuesday. I know the annual reviews and process and people, are okay for what they did the past year, but when they're looking at going forward, promotion and tenure time as they're putting forward their packages, particularly midterm reviews, things like that, they are aware. And hopefully Dr. Johnson can talk about that. I think one of the things is they're still trying to understand what is actually happening, but they have been made aware.
Right. So we're obviously monitoring the situation. We're about 2 weeks into this, and it's a nationwide problem, right? So it's not like people at other institutions are not dealing with the same thing. And so we're going to continue monitoring. We will evaluate what impact this has on the faculty, and we hope to make sure that we're supporting them in any way possible. And we'll continue to update anything that we need to. If it comes down to offering tenure clock extensions, things of that nature, we can. If it means adding additional statements to the dossiers to talk about the impact of some of these things on your research program, we can look at that as well. But right now, we haven't made any significant plans or adjustments, but we will continue to monitor and support our faculty in any way we can.
I'd just like to add that, remember, we are the ones who sit on tenure and promotion committees. So in some sense, we have to think about, as faculty, how we wish to treat our colleagues through this. So it's not just on the administration, it's on us as well. Senator Souza, I apologize, I missed your hand earlier.
No, that's okay. Jordan Zurich, College of Education. This is very low priority in terms of what we're all talking about today, but just a quick question. If the executive committee might be able to look into advisors placing students in classes well after ad drop without instructor approval. We've had a few incidences in our college where students are getting placed in classes 2 or 3 weeks after and just showing up, and the instructor finds out that they're on the roster. Just I know that's a low priority, but don't know if that's something that could be looked into. Or
Your speaker is looking here. Does she wish to make a comment? But it's not a low priority. I'm sure the EC will be happy to take that up.
Yes, and I believe that Dr. Scott is here as well, and he's now aware of that also from, so the administration's aware. And I can tell you, in my college, I won't do it. If a faculty member says no, it's not going to happen, so.
awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else before I make a final comment? Okay, so just to remind everybody, on March the 3rd, there's going to be a joint meeting between the Texas A&M Faculty Senate and the UT Faculty Council. It will be held on the campus of UT, and we have a draft schedule up. We're still working on the final schedule. Like everything else, there's a lot of things in flux. The president of UT is going to join us at the beginning. Unfortunately, our president will not be there, but I have it on good words that Michael Johnson and Claire Katz are going to come. Is that correct, Michael? So they'll be joining us. You should have gotten an email from UT saying if you wish to sign up, please register. If not, we're going to forward that to everybody. Also tomorrow, expect to get a little survey about whether or not how you want to get there. So we are going to look at that and see if we can arrange maybe some shuttle vans. If there's not enough people who say that, we'll try to do some, carpooling, et cetera. So, yeah.
This just came through a minute ago. Federal judge in Massachusetts has blocked the NIH rate change. I'm still reading the order, but apparently it's been blocked, so.
A short-term reprieve. Thank you very much for we all know what we're going through. So if no one else has anything, sorry. Is that Sater? Sorry if I mispronounced your last name. My eyes aren't that good.
Yes, well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Reza Sadr, College of Engineering. I have a little bit of different question, which is more educational after all these interesting talks. I apologize taking your time a little bit longer. An issue came to my attention regarding co-requisites taken by a student. I'm not sure if other colleagues have came across this problem. I just wanted to raise this here and seek basically opinion, advice, guidance. So the issue is I'm with College of Engineering, as I mentioned. We have a bunch of prerequisites that students they need, like any other college, to take to go to the higher level courses. And sometimes they basically fail a course, student fails a course, and then the student is allowed to take the course as a co-requisite with the higher level course. And then the student, we had this case that the student actually failed that course again, and then in the meantime registered for the higher level course, which is basically a senior course, meaning from A to B and B to C. And when I talked to the administrator that regarding registration office, they said, look, I asked, how could she or he allowed to register for this course when this person hasn't passed the earlier course that was supposed to pass? They said, well, this course is not a prerequisite of that higher senior level. It was a prerequisite of previous course that failed. And I can name the exact course numbers if required. So it's kind of apparently it's a little bit of a problem in the system. The computer does not stop the students to do that. So this was a concern. I just thought that I bring it up. I can give a specific example of the course number if required. Basically, if a prerequisite is not met, immediately after, the student is allowed to take the higher level course as a co-requisite, but then the next semester, nobody checks for going back 2 semesters back to see, okay, this student, did he or she pass the original course or is still on the back burner struggling with it?
Thank you for your question. And you're seeing this on your campus at Qatar, correct?
Yes, but I hear that I also taught for years in main campus. It can happen, but obviously I've never saw it there, so I don't know. Well, the system is the same. It doesn't matter. Yes, we have a student currently. We had it this semester that went through this, and the system allowed registration. And when I investigated it, I was told by the registrar office that, we don't have anything to stop it. And it doesn't seem right. I mean, if the foundation is not met, it's just shouldn't be that at some point it should be addressed.
So I believe our Associate Provost, Tim Scott, will reach out to you and look at this issue. So
I would appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Anything else? I will now turn the podium over to our speaker.
And Senator Bernal, I forgot to ask if you would please email me the verbiage that you would like to suggest for the signage for them to consider. Please do that and I will share that. Okay, thank you very much. Again, these are unprecedented times. I am getting information all the time and stuff is changing all the time. As I get some static information, I'll be happy to share that with you and also send out links to the websites where our respective administrators are updating information, research. That's just changing all the time, as we just heard right here. So thank you all very much. Keep the lines of communication open, and I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.